When my friend first introduced me to the dark web, I was amazed at how such an unknown thing could house some of the most illegal things on Earth. Up until today, I'd only used it for learning how to code and commit small crimes. But after the horrifying videos I just found, I don't think I'll ever use the dark web again. I had first met my best friend Alex a little bit after I got into high school. My parents had moved us to a new town, and I had no friends. It was lonely at first, but I got used to it. We moved because they were paranoid after many murders occurred in our old town. I thought this was weird, moving across the country over that, but I let it go. The reason Alex and I became friends so quickly was because we both had a shared interest in the internet and everything it had to offer. I was a gaming addict and a Tier 3 Pokemon subscriber, while he was more of a coder and developer. 2 years later, we were still really good friends, but now we were much older and smarter. Alex had discovered the dark web, and he was obsessed with it. He pretty much spent every hour of the day on it, searching through anything you could imagine. There was nothing wrong with this, but one search he made was the biggest mistake of his entire life. I remember waking up to dozens of text messages from him one morning. This wasn't normal. Alex wasn't a very social person, and it was very hard to get words out of him. I opened my phone to see what he had messaged me. "Dude, Jack, you have to come over right now. This is important. Jack, please wake up. This is urgent. Where are you?" These were only some of the messages, but the rest were very similar, with them all being urgent and that I needed to go to his house immediately. My parents were both still at work, so I went over to Alex's house. When I arrived, there were 4 cop cars parked in front of his house, and there were dozens of people and news vans standing out front. I made my way through the crowd, and Alex's mother told the police to let me inside. I could see tears rolling down her cheeks as she opened the door. "What's going on, Mrs. Gonzalez?" I asked. She told me that Alex was missing, and then she began to cry. My heart sank. How could this happen? He had just texted me earlier that morning. That was when it hit me. What if he was trying to warn me? What if his text messages were related to his disappearance? Still in shock, I walked up to one of the detectives in the kitchen. "Is Alex going to be okay?" I asked. "Of course he is. He's going to be just fine. We're going to find him very soon," one of the detectives responded. Something about that response was off. It was like I knew he was wrong. Deep down, I had this slight feeling that I wasn't going to ever see him again. I remembered the text messages, however, and pulled out my phone and started to show it to the detective. "He texted me this morning. What if this has something to do with him going missing?" I said swiftly. As he began reading them, his expression quickly changed. It was like it got worse. He told me they needed to keep my phone for now to investigate the text messages, and said they would give it back to me later. I stayed around the house for a while, not just because I missed Alex, but because I wanted to comfort his parents. They cared about me a lot, and it hurt to see them like that. His mother couldn't stop crying. Eventually, however, I went into Alex's room to see if I could find anything that might give a clue about why he went missing. I searched through everything, but I found nothing. That's when I noticed something. Alex's computer was on, but his monitor was turned off. I looked for the button to turn it on, and I hit it. As the screen lit up, my heart sank. He was on the dark web. Obviously, this was normal, but for some reason, he had dozens of different tabs opened. I knew this part wasn't normal, so I closed the door and locked it, and began going through them. At first, it was all pretty usual stuff for him, but then things started to get weird. He had a tab open that was an article about a murder that had happened several years ago. The article said that it was a woman who was found dead in her apartment. Her body was mutilated, cut up, and covered in acid. I nearly threw up reading it and seeing the horrifying pictures of the crime scene. Not wanting to see any more of it, I switched the tab. just to reveal another article about another murder. Confused, I quickly went through the rest of the tabs he had open, and they were all the same thing. They all were about some type of murder or crime. The one that stuck out to me the most, however, was one about a murder that had happened 2 years ago. At first it seemed pretty normal, but as I read further, I realized what it was. It was about the murder of our neighborhood that prompted us to move away. Confusion quickly swept over me. How did Alex know about this? I never told him about it, because to me, it really wasn't that important. I figured it must have been a strange coincidence, but then I saw the last search he had made on his computer. It was my last name. Horrified and confused, I quickly stumbled out of his room and back to the living room. "Is everything alright?" Alex's mother said, sniffing away her tears. Yeah, I just need to go home for dinner," I responded. On the way home, so many questions and thoughts filled my mind. Why was he searching up my last name? Did he think that I had something to do with this? That must have been why he was texting me so frantically that morning. If only I could just explain to him that I didn't do anything wrong. But I couldn't. He was still missing, and I had to find out why. When I got home, I raced to my room and slammed the bedroom door shut, and got on my computer. I loaded up my Tor browser and turned my VPN on. I knew what I had to do. I began typing in the letters of my last name, becoming more nervous after every letter. When I finally hit enter, nothing happened. It was just a blank screen. Confused, I refreshed the page, but once again, there was nothing. Why did Alex search this if there was nothing? I thought to myself. There must be something out there. I was getting ready to close the tab, thinking I had ran into a dead end, when suddenly the page started to load. It took several minutes, but finally, it loaded to reveal hundreds of videos. Immediately, I knew what they were. They were murders. But why did they show up when you searched my last name? I considered just stopping right there and turning back, knowing the horrifying things I would see if I had continued on. But I just couldn't walk away. I knew this had to be why Alex went missing, so I clicked on the first video. As it started playing, I saw what looked like a woman strapped to a chair in some sort of a basement. I quickly recognized who it was. It was my neighbor from 2 years ago. I could tell because she had the same heart-shaped tattoo on her neck. She sat there for a minute, struggling, panicking, and screaming for someone to help. However, suddenly, 2 figures walked into frame. At first, I couldn't tell who they were, but as they turned around to face the camera, my heart sank again. It was my parents. My father was holding a knife, while my mother was holding a small scalpel. They paused for a moment before they started what was the most horrifying 5 minutes of my entire life. I watched as they cut her into pieces and listened to as she begged for mercy, screaming the whole time. Blood filled the room as she took her final breath. When the video ended, it quickly went to another, revealing the exact same room and chair I'd seen before. I was traumatized by what I had already seen, and I knew I couldn't watch any more of it. My parents were murderers, and I now knew the real reason why we moved away a few years ago. I knew there was something off about that, but I just never could have imagined that this was the horrifying secret that they had been hiding from me. This whole time I thought Alex was trying to accuse me of being responsible for these murders, but I was so wrong. He was trying to warn me. I scanned through more of the videos, each in the exact same room. I was just about finished, ready to go to the police so that I could tell them about what I had just seen when I noticed something. There was a new video uploaded today on the website. I quickly clicked on it and pressed play to reveal what looked like a man this time, strapped to the chair. He had a sack over his face, and I couldn't tell who it was. Once again, however, I saw my parents walk into the frame. My father walked up to the man and pulled the sack off his head. At first, I couldn't tell who it was, but then I realized who I was looking at. It was Alex. The deep web is one of the most amazing things on Earth. Not because of how joyful it makes people or anything, but because it is a completely uncensored view of people. You can speak your mind, buy what you want, do anything you want when on the deep web. When on the deep web, you have complete and total freedom. I had always been fascinated by the deep web, and at the time the events in the story occurred, I was in college. Lots of people at my campus had recently been getting into accessing the dark web. It was almost like a trend. With so many people getting on it, it seemed perfectly safe for me to give it a try. Now, I've always heard the horror stories, the stories of hacking, and stumbling on disgusting sites. But these stories were mainly what kept me off the deep web. But with most of the people at my college using it on a normal basis, I decided to give it a go. I asked a friend to come over and help me set it up. When my friend arrived, we opened up my laptop and began to set everything up. He told me that we were using Tor, a program that lets you access the deep web. He also asked me if I was planning on doing anything illegal, to which I replied no. He said that since I wasn't, we didn't need to install Tails, which is apparently a software that makes it more secure if you plan on doing illegal things. A little while later, everything was set up. I had my new IP address, and my friend gave me a brief rundown of what to do and what not to do. He made it very clear that when I was using the hidden wiki, that I kept it on censored mode, so that it would be less likely for me to see something I didn't want to see. After about 2 weeks of using the deep web, I felt like a pro. I had accessed many different sites, spoken with some great people, made friends, and even bought some weed. I had become cocky and was ready to dig deeper into the dark web. I turned off the censored mode on the hidden wiki and began to browse the links. It took a while, mostly because Tor is a bit slow and many of the links just led to dead web pages. Eventually, though, I stumbled onto a site called All the Gore. It was mainly a big chat room with many different topics. I had a fairly strong stomach. I had seen many violent movies, and I'd even seen some beheadings, killings, and the like just through the normal internet. After looking at a few different chat rooms, I noticed how sick this site really was. The people in these chat rooms were actual killers, bragging about some of the things they had done. In the chat room, you could also post pictures. One man by the name of Culture045 had the stage in one of the chat rooms. He was explaining in detail how he had broken into someone's house, kidnapped a little girl, and brutally killed her parents by hiding under the bed, and then opening their throats. He then explained how he brought the little girl back to his house, beat her, and cut her up. I didn't think he was telling the truth at first, but then he posted pictures. These were the most horrifying pictures I had ever seen. Close-ups of the poor 8 to 10-year-old girl being brutally beaten and cut with a knife. Culture kept posting pictures. The new ones were of the girl tied to a chair, bleeding, crying, throwing up. Then he showed a picture of him with a drill, drilling into her skull. The most haunting part is that while he was doing it, he was looking at the camera with sheer joy on his face. I had seen enough, and I typed in the chat room window, "You people are sick and deserve to die. How could you sleep at night?" Immediately, people began making fun of me, saying that I was just as helpless and ignorant as the little girl in the pictures, and that I should get off the big boy part of the internet. They began saying I was a pussy and calling me an empath. That's when Culture typed something in the chat box. He said, "Really? Where do you live, buddy? I'm sure everyone would love to see you on this site." I then made the biggest mistake of my life and typed, "I'm calling the police and having this site shut down." Less than a minute later, everything on the site went black, and a new chat box appeared in green. In it, someone named Admin1 typed in the box. He said, "Call the cops, and you'll regret it." I didn't type anything in the box and reached for my cell phone. What happened next still haunts me to this day. My phone said I had a new message. I opened it, and it said, "Call the police and you're dead." There was no number. It didn't even say unknown number. It was just blank. I looked back at my laptop and saw my webcam light turn on. I quickly covered it, but I saw on the screen a picture of me, looking at my phone. I got wide-eyed and froze for a moment when the admin typed again, "Put the phone down, right now, and uncover your webcam." I put my phone down, but kept the webcam covered. When he typed again, "Okay then, be like that." Right after, he posted my full name, age, and address in the chat box and typed, "It would be a shame if you and your college buddies went missing, wouldn't it?" I then did as he said and uncovered my webcam. He then told me to follow his instructions on how to make it impossible for me to reach the site again. I followed each and every one. When I finished, I got a text that said, "Now don't ever try to come back." Just like before, it had no number. I still called the police from my friend's phone, but they were never able to find the site. If you ever go on the deep web, don't ever just mindlessly explore, especially if you don't have additional software to keep you more secure. I was a stupid college kid, and I just hope nobody makes the same mistakes I did. I moved to a different home and changed all my information, but even so, I still get nightmares to this day. I never thought much about the dark web. To me, it was just a spooky corner of the internet, filled with urban legends and exaggerated tales. But last month, my curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to explore. I'd always been tech savvy, so accessing the dark web was easier than I expected it to be. I found forums, marketplaces, and bizarre sites that looked like something straight out of a horror movie. But one night, I stumbled upon something that still haunts me, a chat room called The Abyss. The description was cryptic. Talk with those who truly see. Intrigued and a bit naive, I clicked to the link and entered the chat. The interface was basic, just a black screen with a list of usernames on the side, and a chat window in the center. The usernames were strange. Ebon Shade, Soulseeker, Whispering Void, and they immediately started messaging me. Ebon Shade, "Welcome, new traveler. What do you seek?" Soulseeker, "Knowledge, power, or perhaps something darker?" I hesitated before typing. Just curious, what is this place?" Whispering Void, "This is the place where truths are revealed, but beware, not all truths are meant to be known." I felt a mix of excitement and unease. Before I could respond, a new message appeared. Ebon Shade, "Would you like to see something truly enlightening?" My heart was racing as I typed, "Yes." A link appeared in the chat, ominously labeled, "Enter the Abyss." Against my better judgment, I clicked it. My screen went black, then filled with a montage of disturbing images. Old, decaying buildings, people performing strange rituals, faces twisted in terror. It was overwhelming, like a nightmare unfolding before my eyes. When the images stopped, I found myself in the dark chat room, but it was different. The usernames had changed to real names: David, Claire, and Michael, and my webcam had turned on, displaying my own horrified face in the corner of the screen. Panic set in as I realized I couldn't close the window, or even turn off my computer. "David, now you see, there's no turning back." I frantically tried to unplug my computer, but the screen remained on, showing my terrified expression and the cold, emotionless faces of the others in the chat. "Claire, we know where you are." My heart felt like I was going to explode. I grabbed my phone to call for help, but it wouldn't turn on. Suddenly, my screen flickered and a new video feed appeared. It was my own apartment, seen from a perspective I didn't recognize. It was as if someone was inside, watching me. "Michael, you invited us in. Now we are everywhere." In a frenzy, I ran to my front door and threw it open, only to be met with the empty hallway of my apartment building. No one was there. I checked every room and every closet, but I was alone. When I returned to my computer, the chat room was gone. My screen was back to my desktop as if nothing had happened, but I knew better. My phone buzzed and I saw a notification for a new email from an unknown sender. Subject: "Welcome to the Abyss." Body: "We are always watching." It hadn't been the same since that night. I moved to a new city, changed my name. I even got a new job. But the feeling of being watched never leaves me. Sometimes I'll catch a glimpse of a shadow in the corner of my eye, or hear a whisper when I'm alone. One night, about a week after I moved in, I woke up to the sound of my computer booting up. I had left it off, but there it was, the screen glowing in the darkness. The chat room was back, but now the names were different. John, Emily, and Sarah. All people I had known in my own life, who had all passed away. "John, why did you leave us?" "Emily, you can never escape." "Sarah, we're a part of you now." I unplugged the computer, but the screen stayed on, showing their faces twisted in agony and anger. I screamed and threw the computer out of my window, watching it shatter on the pavement below. The screen finally went black, but the terror remained. I replaced my computer thinking it would end the nightmare, but then the text started. Unknown numbers, always the same message. "We are watching." I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. I see them everywhere now, in reflections, in crowds, even in my own dreams. If you ever find a chat room on the dark web called the Abyss, don't enter it. Some doors, once open, can never be closed. One evening, as I was walking back home from work, I felt someone watching me. I turned around, but no one was there. I quickened my pace and hurried up to my apartment. When I entered, my phone buzzed. Another unknown number. The text read, "We are here." The lights flickered and the temperature dropped. My breath came out in visible puffs. I grabbed a knife from my kitchen, my hands trembling as I backed into the living room. The shadows seemed to move, coalesce, forming shapes that were almost human. I don't know if it was a hallucination or something worse, but I heard their voices, whispering my name, promising I would never be alone again. I dropped the knife and ran to my bedroom, locking the door behind me. The whispers grew louder and more insistent. Desperation set in. I decided to document my experience, to warn others. I started typing out this story, but the words are running out. The whispers are too loud now, and I can't think. If you ever find this post, heed my warning. Don't go looking for the Abyss, because it will find you, and once it does, there is no escape. I'll assume you all know about the deep web. Well, what you heard is true. It's not a great place. While some people are there to score weed or firearms, or even out of sheer curiosity, others, well, they're obviously not up to anything good. But I'm not here to talk about those sickos. I'm here to talk about what lies beyond that point. The more cryptic and unexplainable part of the internet. The part that nobody really is supposed to see. Now, I'm not going to begin to tell you how to get here. It's unlikely that you'd even be able to, even if I did. I'm not tooting my own horn here. I just didn't have a life outside of this. I was warned, of course. Everybody told me I wasn't going to like what I saw, that I wouldn't even understand it. Now, I'm passing off that warning to you. Don't try to look for this. There's no official name for this place, or at least I haven't seen one. There were rumors, however, and these ranged from an Illuminati chat room to a virtual holding cell for an experimental AI gone rogue. In reality, it's a lot worse. After a long and painful process of breaking down firewalls, encryptions, solving bizarre philosophical riddles, and following hidden links, I was finally directed to a blank page with one line of text and a text box underneath. Quid caris, Latin for what do you seek? I remember feeling surprised, but in retrospect I didn't know what I was expecting. I'll admit, I was a bit stumped here, partly because I didn't know the answer to that question. I had no objective. I just wanted to see if I could do it. I tried some generic answers at first. I typed in the truth and enlightenment. You know, Matrix type shit. Nothing happened. I tried a bunch of answers, but none of them worked. I was getting a bit frustrated at this point. Maybe this was a gag page. Maybe I really hadn't figured anything out. If only. I tried something off the wall. Not sure how this came to me or why I thought it would work, but I typed in, what also seeks me. Now that I think about it, this might have been an AI. To my surprise, the page went blank. Like, fully blank. I waited, and after about 5 minutes, I was directed to what looked like a forum. No, it wasn't even that. It was more basic. Just a list of links over a brownish-yellow background. The links themselves were indecipherable, just seemingly random sequences of characters, symbols, and letters. A lot of them I had never seen before. It almost looked like an alien language. Obviously, just a code. I didn't understand. At this point, expectations were off the wall. Each link was a shot in the dark. I clicked on the first one. It loaded up a live feed of what seemed to be the Paris catacombs. I watched for a while, but it was ultimately uneventful. I move on to the next link. It was a shaky video in a dark setting, but I could make out men in tactical gear. They were in a house, opening doors and sweeping each room. Eventually, they kicked one down to reveal some type of creature. Tall and humanoid, with scaly skin. It was gnawing on a dismembered arm of some kind of animal. They tried shooting at it, but it escaped out the window. Then the video stopped there. Well, I was floored. What the hell was this? It looked too real to be an unreleased film. I was officially intrigued. Maybe this was worth the months of headaches and bloodshot eyes after all. I couldn't stop now. I started working down the list of links. With each click, everything got more and more bizarre, more disturbing. I stumbled upon a document called the Paragon Project, detailing trials of human experimentation that would lead to superhuman levels of strength and durability. It was an apparent success. It even looked official, too. There were essays on space-time anomalies, glitches in reality, and apparent pictures of alternate dimensions. There were detailed explanations regarding Area 51, the Bermuda Triangle, assassinations, disappearances, and the true nature of the Holy Grail. One of the more upsetting ones was a document referring to a world-ending bomb, a nuke that's 720,000 times stronger than the one dropped on Hiroshima. I didn't want to know why we would need that. I found contingency plans for different kinds of apocalypses. Nuclear winter, biological weapons, a viral outbreak. Some were a little bit more peculiar. One of these was called the Marianas Trench Abnormality, the bluntly labeled Strange Man on the 15th floor, and one simply referred to as Blackout, recovered logs of skinwalker hunting expeditions, 911 transcripts from residents of a town in Texas that went missing in 1977, and even the journals that belonged to the people involved in the Dyatlov Pass incident. They didn't go insane because of the snow. I spent hours on there, looking through pages and pages of things I felt like I wasn't supposed to see. I came across a trailer to a silent film made back in 1910, one that apparently made people claw their eyes out, and after watching that, it nearly derailed the whole industry. There was a live stream of a hooded man sitting in front of a camera, head crouched down. He eventually lifted his head, and even though he had no mouth, a deep and guttural "hello" came through my speakers. Somehow I knew it came from him. I didn't stick around for that. There were obscure sets of step-by-step guides that involved things like cutting off your own limbs and sewing on corpses, performing religious incantations in the middle of the Siberian forest, and going to coordinates that apparently housed captive fallen angels. It was unclear what any of these were supposed to achieve. There was also a 20-second long clip titled "The Futility of the Living." I didn't watch it. That's when I realized there was no way even the highest form of organized government had full control of this. One of the scariest things about the whole experience was that I didn't find an end to the list, no matter how far I scrolled down. I think I had a meltdown and passed out eventually, because I woke up on my floor in the middle of the night. I looked at my computer screen to see looped helicopter footage of a massive crab-like creature tearing apart a coastal island. I clicked off of it. I just sat there for the longest time. I really couldn't comprehend what I was seeing, and I don't think I really wanted to. Now, I'm not really sure why I kept going. My brain was screaming for me to take my computer out to the lawn and smash it into little pieces, but I didn't. I noticed something I hadn't before. A small message at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. I didn't know if it had always been there or not. It was hard to read, so I had to squint. More Latin, and it translated into, "Are you satisfied?" There were two options underneath it, yes and no. Now, I knew the answer to this question. Hell no, I wasn't satisfied. I was horrified, scarred for life, but I should have clicked on yes. If I had just clicked on yes, it probably would have taken me out of that godforsaken place, back to comfort and even sanity. Even right now, I can't tell you why I clicked on no, but once I did, the page seemed to refresh. It was still the same basic setup, except there were only 4 links. This time, there were no recognizable numbers or characters. Hell, it didn't even look like anything that could come from this world. Just a collection of extremely crude symbols that didn't give off any sense of pattern or direction. I clicked on the first link. After about 20 seconds, I slammed my computer shut. I can't describe to you what I saw. All I know is that I wasn't supposed to see it. Nobody should ever see something like this. It's not only that it didn't make any sense, I can't tell you why it didn't. I couldn't begin to grasp the images I was seeing. It wasn't graphic or anything. I just couldn't recognize anything. I could make out things moving, but not in a way any creature on Earth has ever moved. Colors that I'd never seen before. Just thinking about it gives me a splitting headache. This is my best attempt at visualizing it. We have 3 dimensions here on Earth. We can move forward, backward, left, and right. These things weren't restricted to that. I can't really explain it any further. All I know is that I didn't want to watch one more second of it. I don't think I would have been able to. I left my room for the first time in a while. I was planning to leave my house. I needed fresh air, to take a walk or something. Hell, I was even thinking about running, just to get my mind off of that shit for a few hours. I was putting on my jacket when I heard a knock at the door. I stopped dead in my tracks. Obviously, I wasn't opening up. About a minute and 5 more sets of knocks came before somebody spoke up. "Open up. We know what you did, but we're not here to hurt you. We just want to talk to you." The tone wasn't threatening. Eventually, I obliged. I opened up my door to 2 tall, slim men in suits. They smiled at me. "Can we come in?" I still don't know how they found me. I thought for sure that I was off the grid. We sat down on the couch. I guess I was just waiting for answers at this point. One of them looked at me and said, "What were you looking for?" I don't know, but I'm not going back," I responded. He smiled again, like this is what he wanted to hear. The other one piped up, "Who do you work for?" His tone was a bit more aggressive. I just shook my head. Look, I didn't know what I was getting into. I wasn't looking for anything. They just stared at me for a while. "I'm not going to tell anybody. Trust me." They finally responded, "We're not worried about that. Doubt anybody believe you anyway." Another smile. Somehow this one felt genuine. "We just wanted to know what your priorities were." In retrospect, that was a very strange question. "Just do us a favor and we'll leave." I perked up. "Just give us the device you use to access it." I didn't ask any questions. I ran upstairs and basically tossed them my laptop. They both smirked at me one last time before heading for the door. Just as they were about to leave, one of them turned back. "I don't think you need to be told, but don't try this again. And don't show anyone else how to get there, either. We'll know." I didn't ask who they were. I'm not sure I would have wanted to know. It's been a little over a week now, and I don't really go on the internet so much anymore. After this, I'm going to try and forget, to try and not think about it anymore. I've started having horrific nightmares. I've been seeing a therapist for that, but I don't really think it's helping. Anyways, I'm not going to let this consume me for the rest of my life. The thing is, I'm afraid this might not be possible. There are some things we aren't supposed to know about, probably for our own safety and sanity. Don't try and seek them out. It's better that way. However, it might be too late. For me. To begin, I think I should explain to some readers the difference between the deep web and the dark web. The deep web is a place that is accessible online by the use of special web browsers, such as Tor, that contains less than legal things such as drugs, human trafficking, and hitmen for hire. The dark web is pretty much everything that is no longer available by conventional means, such as military websites and other sites that have not been incorporated into the current internet architecture. With that in mind, I would like to convey to you all my story of my accidental journey into the unknown space known as the dark web. I'm a computer technician by profession. I work for a company that is contracted by local businesses and private consumers to set up internet connections, install software, and repair any sort of computer problems they can come up with. So naturally, I get all kinds of crazy stories and problems that these people can come up with. I swear, some local businesses complain that their internet is acting up and that they must have a virus. So I shake my head, thinking that someone must have unplugged a network cable or downloaded a Trojan horse accidentally. And then I get up and drive over to their business to address the problem. As soon as I arrive, the man who called me immediately spots me and starts going on and on about hackers, and how much he hates Microsoft Windows, and how many viruses it creates, and all that nonsense that I usually receive when addressing business problems. He leads me to his computer, and I pull out my laptop and sit down in front of it and begin to work. He tells me good luck and walks away to go do whatever he does in his downtime. I open up the browser he uses, i.e., no surprise, and it opens to About Blank. He doesn't even have a homepage. So I try connecting to google.com, and I come up with a 404 error. Alright, well, I know that google.com definitely exists, so there's a problem with his internet connection. I open up his network and sharing center to see if I can use the built-in troubleshooter to diagnose the problem, but I give myself a well-deserved facepalm when I see that he isn't connected to any network. So I search for networks and find a few wireless connections for him to connect to. They're all WEP encrypted, and I'm almost positive that he doesn't know the key. So I break out my laptop and run a WEP cracking tool to get his computer up and running again. As I'm waiting for my tool to find the WEP key, another network suddenly shows up on my computer. This one is unprotected, with an SSID consisting of a random hexadecimal string. Now, I'm extremely bored waiting for this guy to return, so I decide to connect to it and take a look around to see where this is coming from. I connect without any problems, and open up my toolkit of cracking tools to see if I can find a source for this connection. As I'm having my fun hacking away at this unprotected network, my computer freezes up. Albeit only for a second or two, but this doesn't happen much, and it caught me by surprise. I shrugged it off as poor internet speed, and just kept going. A couple minutes later, however, it happened again, and a few minutes after that, once again. Each time getting longer and longer. Weird, I thought to myself. What's with this network? It was then that things started getting really interesting. After the long string of pauses, my screen flickered a bit, and out of nowhere my browser opened by itself. Now, I was beginning to get worried that I had somehow infected my computer with some kind of malware by connecting to this network, and I proceeded to close the browser and began to disconnect from the network before anything else could happen. But I couldn't disconnect. No matter how many times I clicked the little disconnect button, my computer didn't respond, despite everything else on my screen running fine. Fuck, I thought to myself. This is going to be a long day. And just as I was about to hit the power button on my laptop to perform a hard reset, my browser opened again. This time with a little chat box. Hello. I stared at the screen for a couple seconds, not knowing what was going on. I want to talk to you. Now, I had heard about these AI programs that have all these program responses to simulate conversation with people, and I was not impressed. This was definitely one nasty virus, though. You need to leave this network now. This is your last warning. Maybe an automated security program designed to keep hackers out. I'll have to admit, I was impressed with it. I had never seen anything like this before. I'm telling you one last time. Leave. Now. I don't know what made me do it, but I responded to the program. Or what? The next response scared me more than anything in the world ever has. The program began listing information about me. My name, address, telephone number, credit card information, my parents' names, and even their address. My heart sank in my chest, and all the color immediately left my face. I couldn't move. I just sat there, paralyzed with fear. But what came next was even worse. Don't look at me like that. My webcam was on. You really shouldn't stare, H3Man4694. You might see something you regret. Suddenly, the most horrifying images you could ever imagine flashed on my screen. Images of disemboweled humans, human sacrifice, detached limbs, cannibals eating people, video clips of mass suicides and firing lines. My heart was racing. My body was shaking in utter fear of the images I was being shown. They're seared into my brain. These were things that no one should ever see. I mustered the strength I had left and hit the power button on my computer and slammed it shut. I ran to the bathroom and threw up a couple times. I was drenched in sweat and I could barely compose myself. It took me about 20 minutes to go back to my computer, and even then, I had a hard time getting near it. I looked over my client's computer, and it was connected to the wireless network I was cracking earlier. It was working fine now. Just then, my client returned and thanked me for fixing his internet. I didn't say anything. I just grabbed my laptop and left. Going down the elevator with my laptop under my shoulder was absolutely terrible. I just wanted to leave this place and get my laptop replaced as soon as I could. 5th floor, 4th floor. Come on. 3rd floor, 2nd floor. Come on, goddammit! Finally, I arrived at the ground floor, and just as the doors opened, From behind me, I heard a whisper. You really shouldn't stare. H3 man, 4694.